let's dive right into the madness and talk about all of the matchups that's been going on in college basketball. So there's a lot to talk about. There's definitely a lot that went on over this weekend, if any of you guys were paying attention. I know there's some people who follow more NBA basketball than they do follow college basketball, but still, I always and I'm one of those people. I don't necessarily follow college as much as I do with the NBA, but once March rolls around, I try to keep up as much as I can, and I try to get to know everybody else on the team. I get to know the most important players, the key players, and which teams are expected to perform. And again, it was a lot for being just conference games, conference title games. There was a lot of madness going on. Over the weekend, there was only one number one seed in their respective conference that ended up winning their respective title. Only one number one seed did it, and that was UConn. Purdue ended up losing in the semifinals. I'm just pulling up the stats right here. But yeah, Purdue ended up losing in the semifinal, and I believe Houston ended up losing as well in before the championship game. And honestly, Quinnipiac also ended up losing before the championship game. They lost to the St. Peter's Peacocks. More on them later. But they were the only one seed that ended up winning, and that was by far that wasn't even the craziest thing that happened over the weekend in the games that were played. So over the weekend, if you guys watched Kent State go up against Akron in their championship game, Kent State, they were up 61-60 with 4 seconds, 4.8, so 5 seconds left to go in the game. What do? One of their players fouls. I kid you not, one of their players ended up fouling a player from Akron when they were up by 1. And that costed them their championship. Whoever that player is, I'm not going to say his number. I'm not going to say his name, because he's probably already getting a lot of hate from a lot of the people at not only his school, not only his teammates, but everywhere else on the internet, because that is one of the biggest mental errors that you could possibly commit in a basketball game, not knowing the score. And if I'll compare it to the NBA for those of you guys who don't really follow college that much. This was a J.R. Smith moment. If you guys remember in 2018, J.R. Smith, George Hill missed the free throw that would have put the game, honestly, it probably should be George Hill that gets blamed for this more than J.R., but George Hill missed the free throw, which would have put the Cleveland Cavaliers up by 1 in Game 1 of the NBA Finals in 2018. J.R. Smith gets the rebound, but instead of trying to put it up, he just runs back to the three-point line, and LeBron starts pointing at him, tries calling a timeout, and then the timer runs out, and we're introduced with the infamous, LeBron meme where he's looking at JR, and that was the birth of that meme. And JR, literally, after he was talking to LeBron, he said, "I thought we were up." And these are the kind of mental errors that you just simply cannot afford in the biggest moment of the season, especially considering how they've all played as many regular season games as they could. So there was no time for mental errors. The time for mental errors should have been in the beginning, should have been in the regular season. Now is not the time for that. And I was furious watching that game because I literally couldn't believe it. Why would you foul when you're up by 1? And it does not make any sense. A lot of people were quick to defending. Some people were quick to defending him, saying the coach had a timeout. Why didn't he just use the timeout? That's a really dumb move, because then you're giving the offense a lot more time to compose themselves. And another really big game that I watched was and something to keep an eye on, what is Purdue. Now, Purdue, they messed up my bracket last year. because they lost in the first round to a New Jersey team. And now they end up losing in the semifinals. They're the only number 1 seed in this bracket that lost in the semifinals. Every other 1 seed ended up either losing in the championship game, or if you're UConn, ended up winning the championship game, which it seems that UConn is the most complete team going into this NCAA tournament, and I really think that they're going to go back-to-back. I truly think they're going to go back-to-back this season. But regardless, Purdue was the only team that lost in the semifinal round. That is not ideal, especially going into the tournament. And I'm very surprised that they still ended up keeping the 1 seed, but what more can you really do? So I actually have a graph on the brackets. So I'm just going to, if you see me not looking at the camera, that's because I'm looking directly at the screen just so I could see which teams are going to be playing against who and where. So if the image will, there we go. I was about to say it better pop up because I spent hours trying to fix it. But so these are the brackets. Well, I'll zoom out for a little bit just so you guys can see. This is the men's bracket, and it's a really huge bracket. So we'll go through all of them and see how much time we have left. And if we do have enough time, then I'll go ahead and look at the women's brackets because the women's brackets were also revealed. So up first, we have UConn going up against Stetson. It says Connecticut, but yes, it's the university. It's UConn. And since I said that they're going to be, I think they're the most complete team, I truly think that UConn is going to end up winning it all. So this is the team that I have going through completely in my bracket. Stetson's going to get out of the first round. Florida Atlantic goes up against Northwestern. I don't know. I got faith in Florida. Something about Florida and basketball players, they go really well. So I really want to see Florida winning this one. And SDSU going up against Auburn. I think Auburn has actually no, not Auburn, UAB. Excuse me, I didn't read that properly. I think UAB has I think they could upset. Crazy things have happened this weekend. Crazy upsets have happened. I really think that this one is going to be an upset. Now, moving on, I have no idea how Yale is ranked so high on this list. And I watched their championship game that they played against Brown, but I wasn't really that impressed. I feel like their style of basketball is I don't know, it feels a little outdated. That's just me. And I just don't, I'm not a big fan of Yale. If you guys know anything about Quinnipiac lore, they're arch enemies with the hockey team for Yale. So not really too high on that team. And bias aside, still not too high on that team. And I don't really know how they've gotten that high of a seed. I can't even lie to you. So I have no faith in Yale whatsoever. I think they're going to lose. They're going to be one and done. BYU going up against Duquesne. Forgive me if I messed up that name. I'm really bad at pronunciations, if you guys couldn't tell. BYU, I've seen their basketball games, and they are a unit. I feel like BYU isn't going to end up winning this game. Illinois going up against Moorhead. That one, it seems clear-cut that it's going to be Illinois, but I really do not like making these types of predictions on March Madness, simply because it's every time that I do, it always ends up turning its heels and going against my bracket. So I still have time to think of exactly what teams I want to go. But right here in this area of the bracket in particular, I really am not entirely sure, especially Iowa State. I'm a big fan of, and I really think that they'll end up winning this one. But it's really the North Carolina that I'm scared of. But even though it's in a completely different bracket, I'm still scared of they are the 1 seed, sure, but 1 seeds have lost to 16 seeds before. I mean, it's rare. So that might not happen here, but I'm more worried about what that could mean for my future bracket, as opposed to I'm expecting them to make it to make it here at least, like into this next round, into the second round. But then if I have them going into the second round, then I'm most likely going to have them going into the third round as well. And that's what I'm scared about. I'm scared when they go up against either Michigan or Mississippi. And I did skip through all of these games, but that's mainly because like I have the highest seed winning in all of these games. And with the only potential upset being Drake going up against Washington State. Drake. But regardless, where's St. Peter's? Because I know St. Peter's is probably going to be on the other side. Now that I think about it, yeah, because if that's the West, St. Peter's going to be on the other side of that bracket. So I'll go ahead and move directly over to that side of the bracket after this. There's Mississippi State going up against Michigan State. That's going to be a really fun game. I do think that Michigan is going to end up prevailing. However, that's just my take on it. Then there's St. Mary's going up against Grand Canyon. Again, another upset is definitely possible. Alabama going up against Charleston, Clemson and New Mexico, Baylor and Colgate, Dayton and Nevada, Arizona and Long Beach State. So Arizona's obviously, like, I feel like Arizona is going to prevail in this one, and Dayton is gonna end up winning in this one. This one is also it could be really good. Like, I know Baylor's is a unit, but Colgate, don't underestimate Colgate. It might just be a bias that I have, but don't underestimate this team whatsoever. And Clemson, I've seen Clemson blow it several times when they were in the tournament. So I don't trust them. I just do not trust them. And you can call it a superstitious thing, but I don't trust them. I don't have them making it out. I actually have New Mexico ending up making it out, and that's it. New Mexico's not going to go any farther than that. Now, most of it is like just gut feeling, because I really cannot go. When I'm looking at March Madness, I rarely ever try looking at numbers, because it seems that every single time that I've looked at the numbers and I've picked the teams that I want, my bracket always ends up messing up in the first round. Always, every single time. But when I go with and it's not just one team that ends up messing it up. It's it's like all of the teams. And when I stopped doing that, when I started like going with my gut a little bit more, I got a lot better results. And when Purdue went up against Dickinson, I used all the numbers to be like, okay, like Purdue is probably like, they do have that 7'4" center, and they have the spacing and the players, like, oh, this is a definite win. But no, they ended up losing, and I was like, great, there goes my bracket. Now, let's move on over to here, because I'm very curious to see who St. Peter's goes up against. Now, I know that since like I am like a Quinnipiac student, St. Peter's beat us, so I really should be like hoping that St. Peter's is going to end up losing. But if any of you guys are from New Jersey or from that area, then you know exactly what the St. Peter's you can't even see it on this graph. My bad. Let me zoom out. There we go. Okay, and you still can't see it. That's always fantastic. Still can't see it. Okay. Just zooming out right now just so you could see it, just a little bit of it. Yeah, why is it not showing? That's weird. But regardless, yeah, St. Peter's is going up against Tennessee. So since you can't see it, I'm just going to go ahead and break this and go back into this regular segment right here. But St. Peter's is going to go up against Tennessee in this bracket. They're the 15th seed yet again. And honestly, like, to me, it just looks like a repeat of what we saw 2 years ago. It looks like a repeat. Again, like, going off of what I said about, like, New Jersey, anybody from New Jersey, they know exactly what this team did to all of us. Not just like people that were close to the school, but people that actually like lived in the the Jersey City area. They were arguably the most popular thing going on around March Madness in my entire state. They literally put New Jersey on the map, and they got so many applications and so much more money that they ended up building a whole new stadium for that basketball team. And obviously, like, being a relative from New Jersey, seeing a team that literally, like, just seeing a small team like that make it all the way to the Elite Eight was so inspirational. And it was just like, the entire state of New Jersey was backing St. Peter's, and it was magical because every single one of us was a St. Peter's fan, and it was like, wow, this is. And I even went to the parade that they hosted after. I mean, they ended up losing in the Elite Eight, but they were they were the only 15th seed to ever make it that far, and being a part of that history, and being like watching it live, you just couldn't write a better script. You really couldn't write a better script. And they go up against Tennessee. They're ranked second, so obviously this is not going to be easy. But I hope that they can do. I hope that they could do something like they did 2 years ago in my senior year. That was one of the best moments of my senior year. Just seeing them go all the way. It was so much fun. And Texas goes up against either UVA or CSU. And since you guys can't read the graphics, I'm gonna since the graphic isn't working like how I wanted it to work, I'm just going to go ahead and read off of it. Creighton is going up against Akron, so the team that I was just talking about that ended up winning in such a fluky way, getting fouled late in the game. I have no faith in Akron just because of how they ended up winning that game. I really do not have faith. They won so fluke. It was such a fluky win. Like, the player made a mental error, and I understand a win is a win is a win is a win, but that mental error was so crucial, and it changed everything. Now, South Carolina goes up against Oregon. Kansas goes up against Samford. Gonzaga goes up against McNeese. Utah State goes up against TCU. And Purdue goes up against either MTST or Graham. So one of those teams is going to be, and that game gets decided on, I believe, tomorrow. MTST versus Graham. I'm going to check right now just to make sure that those are the games that are going to be happening tomorrow, because there's no college games later tonight. And let's just see. No, that game is going to be taking place on Wednesday. That's my bad. That's at 6:40. So stay in tune for that game. I'm definitely going to be tuning into that game. And let's see. The next on the bracket for the South is Houston going up against Longwood, Nebraska going up against Texas A&M. Now, a little bit of a funny story about Nebraska and Texas A&M. They're matched up against each other in both the men's and the women's bracket. So I feel like that's kind of ironic, and that's a little funny because, like, again, like, the women, it's rare that, like, the women's team and, like, the men's team, like, they play the exact same team in the tournament due to, like, standings and bracket placements. Now, let me just continue just reading off the bracket a little bit more. Wisconsin goes up against James Madison. Duke going up against Vermont. I actually think Vermont is going to pull off the upset in this one, simply because, like, Duke is not the same without Coach K. Like, that's just my personal opinion. They are not the same. And Texas Tech going up against North Carolina State, Kentucky going up against Oakland, and Florida going up against BSU or Colorado, and then Marquette going up against Western Kentucky. I actually have a lot of faith in Marquette, and I think they're going to go all the way to the Elite Eight at the very least. But that's the entirety of the bracket, and we are out of time for this first segment. So now I'm going to go ahead and pivot back to NBA basketball and go right ahead and talk about Kyrie Irving's game winner. And also I might as well throw in Bam Adebayo's game winner as well, because he did not get that much love right after Kyrie hit that game winner. So I'll talk about both of those teams, but particularly talk about the Mavericks after this short break. I will be right back.